Hello, everybody. We'll let people get in here. We got a bunch more attending. Hello.
Hi, so I am driving, but I'm still here.
Okay, great. This will be recorded and I'm going to save it up to YouTube so you can watch it if you miss anything or so don't worry about that.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I know some people are emailing me for the link here. Hold on. Not that I can send it to them. We'll get going in a couple of minutes. Give people a few. I know I got some people waiting on the links from Zoom. Hmm. All right, we'll do about 2 more minutes. Just gonna grab myself a water and we'll get cracking. All right. So I'll be manning the chat by myself here. So feel free to jump in the chat or ask a question. I think the Q&A is working too. It might take me a while to go back and forth between them. It should take me 20, 30 minutes to go through my presentation. Then we could, take whatever questions you guys have. And again, I'm going to copy this up to YouTube. So you'll be able to watch this as many times as you want. You can listen to me every day for the rest of your life if you want to. Lucky you, huh? Before we get started, does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything? All right. I don't see anything popping up. So let's get started here. Okay. So we're going to be talking about the new early childhood MTEL. It changed this February, I think it was the first time it was given, and discussing what was going on with students who've taken the test and looking at the practice materials. We put together a program that we first did in May, I believe. I got my first program in, And we're going to have another one starting up soon in September. So I'm going to talk about the company a little bit and then get into the test and the differences between the old and the new test, and explain what we do now in our program. And, the students are very successful the first time through, and, they really seem to get a lot out of it, and try to explain what makes us different than other prep companies as well. Again, hello, I'm Chuck Zucco, founder and owner of ETI, and we have been around for a long time. I've been doing this since 1999. And, we're ETI, used to call ourselves the Educational Testing Institute. But now it's just ETI, small local business. All my employees, all our teachers are public school educators. They are all special educators, have special ed experience. I always find that as being very important. I've done programs for many public school districts, Boston, Lawrence, charter schools, colleges. I just did a program for Endicott this spring, had thousands of students over the years in groups, individual tutoring. And now we do videos, right? So we kind of modernized recently with the advent of COVID, had no choice. I've always guaranteed success. And as long as this is my company, I'll always guarantee our group classes. And it's unconditionally free to repeat a class if you take it with me. The tutoring is different because it's so time intensive, very expensive, especially if I'm paying other people to tutor. But the group classes and the videos, free to repeat forever. Unconditional. I don't care if you take the test or not. There's a lot of information on these tests. I can't expect you to learn things in a month or a month and a half and then just pass. A lot of people have language issues, learning issues. And so, I've always made it that I want you to pass, and I'm not going to try to gouge you for every cent you have in order to make that happen. The curriculum is really designed by a special educator, me. And so it's really designed to work for anybody, no matter what issues you may have. Special ed issues, ADHD. I have ADHD, so I feel your pain. Any kind of language issues, ESL stuff. People have been to school for 30 years because they're changing careers. I do from, basics, really explain things, and have everything build on everything else. So there are really no surprises when you take the test. You know what to expect, and you know how to think about things. Every time I see my finger, I realize people ain't know. I broke my finger a month or so ago. Not a big deal, but it's flashing in my face, and you must be saying, what the hell's wrong with this guy's finger? So, as I say, we're different than other programs because our program are developed and delivered by special educators, really teachers and educators. We teach. We want you to ask questions. I know the big popular program out there nowadays, from what I hear from my students, kind of plows through material. Questions are not encouraged, are not allowed. It's like, nope, sorry, we're going to move on. So I think people that pass with that program really don't need any prep. They just need to be told what's on the test, and those people can kind of go get it. We've always been very different. We've really gone back to those very basic to the advanced skills you need, because people are coming from many different places. I really focus strongly on test taking strategies. We do a whole class, a couple hours on how to approach, how to take, how to think about multiple choice tests, and build in a logical system so that you are well prepared for any test you ever take in your life, right? That's going to be multiple choice. It's a system that's not just for the MTEL. But there are MTEL specific strategies that we can take advantage of that we get into as well. Okay. So I get to know my students. We have a Facebook group that people are in. A lot of students approach me for issues on, should I do this MTEL or that MTEL, issues at work. oh, whatever. It's kind of a nice little community and family that we have started. We have 400 plus people in there, and anyone who signs up for class, anybody who's in, I'll invite you to come into the group. And it's really been nice over the last few years. We don't have huge class sizes. You know, we've had 30 people over the years, but we're not going to be like 100 people in a classroom. The way I teach, I don't think people can learn that way. I don't like to do, you know, classes that are like, you know, 3 days in a row. Everything's thrown at you. I don't know how people can learn that way. I don't believe people can learn that way. That's why I think people that take those kind of programs really don't need it, because I'm a smart guy. I couldn't focus and study and learn in that kind of environment. So it's just not something I want. We've done it over the years on occasion, boot camp stuff. I don't like it, so I don't want to do it. What we offer, we have live Zoom classes where we'd be here like this, and I'd be teaching. We also have self-paced video programs, individual tutoring, and we do flex consultation and review for people who are close and want to do that flex to pass their MTEL. The classes, again, unconditionally guaranteed. These are the MTEL subjects we have classes on. We also have, we're going to be doing classes, we're going to be doing classes on the alternatives for the communicational literacy. Those are going to be coming up this fall. Here are the video programs. The general curriculum is changing, as you may or may not know. I'll have video programs for the general curriculums. Probably by the first of the year, I got to really look at those tests and see what they are first and develop programs. I'll have a video program for this as well. But again, probably looking around the first of the year before that's kind of out and available. But there is a Zoom class that's coming up for this in early September. And, you know, we'll get into that in a little bit. Individual tutoring for any of the MTELs we have just looked at, and some others too. We have history and English stuff we've done over the years, and the test taking skills and strategies is good for really any exam. And I work with people on that. Even if they take a science test, I don't even know the content, we can work on that, and it's helpful for people. All right, so let's look at the differences in these programs. Whoops. So the old test, the O2, 100 multiple choice, 2 open responses. The new test, same thing. 100 multiple choice, 2 open responses. The breakdown of the scoring is the same. 80% multiple choice, 10% for each open response. So 20% total. You still have 4 hours to take it. And the 240 is still the scale score that is passing. It's a little bit different in the content here. Let's go backwards again. It's a little bit different in the content. I'll blame my finger for pushing the wrong buttons. So they had the sub areas in the old test: knowledge of development, children's literature and the writing process, and then the core knowledge, which was your real tough content, the history, the science, the math, English, engineering, that kind of stuff. Now they break it down a little differently. Child development still there, language and the writing process, and then they have math, then they have history, social science, and then they have science and engineering. So the English stuff is really in the top part, any you know, ELA type questions in the first part there with the language foundations and the writing process. This isn't so much different the way it's set up here, but the way they ask questions, how the test kind of executed is very different. It's not the same test as it was before. For some of you, that's good news and it's going to be easier. For others, it's going to be more difficult and it'll be harder. All right, and I'll try to explain why in the next few slides here as we go on. Open responses look the same on paper, very different experience on the open responses, very different skills. to answer them. To give you an idea of the differences, this is the old test. A development question might be, why do preschool kids want every product they see marketed to them in commercials? Or what's the most common birth defect, right? Old test. New test, they give scenarios. They give teachers interacting with students, and they'll ask, what should the teacher do? Or what do you think the teacher's trying to do? What should the teacher do? What is this teacher doing? So what does that mean that they're trying to get to, right? So what's the function of what the teacher's doing with the student? Much different. So I think the content is easier because people, you guys probably know this stuff because you're good teachers, but the language is dense and there are lots of different things to think about. So it's more difficult in that regard. So it really depends on your learning style. And, I think English ability too, and how comfortable you are with really dense language is whether it's going to be easier or more difficult for you to go through. So, for example, here, you probably read this already. They give a little scenario, and then they're saying, okay, the teacher's asking this or setting this up as a model to have students have a conversation, right? It's kind of a structured conversation here. This teacher's scaffolding an approach, right? They're scaffolding the conversation, would most likely support process to which of the following instructional goals? And so the answer choices are going to be the instructional goals. So this lesson is for what goal? All right. So it's like a lesson plan that's inverted, right? Instead of saying, here's the goal, this is what I'm going to do, they're saying, hey, if this is what the intervention is or the teaching is, what's the actual goal the teacher's trying to get to? So it's a very different kind of approach to testing. And again, content easier because people should know this stuff pretty well. You're not going to know everything, of course, but the type of question is very different, and it is it's dense. It's language dense all around. So here's an example of the content areas. So science, math, history, English. You had to know real history. You had to know real science. Which of the following excerpts from the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Mass best illustrates the state's commitment to the principle of popular sovereignty? So you got to know, what is popular sovereignty? What does that mean? What's that concept? And then look at excerpts, legal document out of the Constitution, and say which one illustrates popular sovereignty. Tough question. And natural selection. You have to understand that science and decide concepts. And here's a math question. You might remember this sucker, right? The toll booth collects 25 cents for a car, 50 cents for a truck. And so how do you know what equation tells you how much that you would collect every day? So now, a math question, for example, is very different. So a kindergarten teacher distributes materials for an exploratory project. The child says, no fair. They got 8 and I only got 7. So this statement demonstrates acquisition of which of the following mathematical skills. So what this kid says means that he understands something mathematically. What math concept is that? Okay, again, scenario-based, not direct, do this problem, but do you understand these math concepts and how they apply to these kids from pre-K to 2nd grade? Based on the work sample and discussion. So they'll give you a work sample and show you part of an illustration as part of the question. The teacher's instructional approach supports development of which mathematical skill? So in the work sample, the kid's work or the discussion, you're going to see, oh, the kid struggles with this concept. Maybe he doesn't have one-to-one correspondence or number recognition. And so you're going to have to look at that, identify the issue the skill has, identify the skill issue the kid has, and then say, okay, the teacher's approach is to fix which skill. So again, very different conceptually, very different kind of question than, can you do this math? It's not about what do you know you have to produce? It's, why is this teacher doing this? How would you help this kid with this skill deficit? Very different test. So an example for history and social science, again, they give you informations and scenarios to answer the questions. And a lot of the history and social science, there's a lot of SEL, a lot of social emotional learning questions in this part of the test itself. There are a good number of them, what people said. Connecting good leadership traits to student action is an important component of the classroom lesson. For which reason? Which of the following instructional strategies did the teacher implement to support the student's understanding of the roles of citizens in the classroom? So again, you're reading a scenario, you're reading about a student's strengths and limitations, and you're analyzing it, and you're proving that you know the content and the strategies that were necessary, why they were used. Similarly with science, second grade students given materials to create a model showing the characteristics of a plant, like a water lily or a cactus, and how it lives in its own environment. This activity would best support students' understanding of the ways which, and again, science concept about plants are the answer choices. As part of the daily morning meeting, kindergarten children use observations to collect data about weather. The teacher records the class's data in a weekly weather tracker, right? And they would have that for you there. At the end of the week, the kindergarten children engage in a whole group discussion to compare any consistencies or changes in the weather. The teacher's instructional approach would best promote the student's application of which of the following science and engineering practices. So again, conceptual work about science and engineering concepts, not what do you know, how do you know how to teach or apply these concepts to kids. So the differences in general, the field 2 was very knowledge, content, memorization dependent. Okay. Traditional math and science questions. You solve the problem. Can you do this work? And again, as you know, if you took that last test, it was not elementary, early childhood, pre-K content, right? It was really middle school, high school content they wanted you to do, which I thought was never appropriate for this test anyway. The new test, it's more conceptually based, pedagogy, teaching methods and strategies. You're given scenarios to interpret and analyze. Again, lots of information to process. And in the program, right, we try to break that down, how to think about these questions, how to break down the language and understand what they're asking you, and how to take that data and break it down so you can come up with a logical answer. All right. And again, this test, you don't solve the problem, the students solve the problem, and then you analyze the student or the teacher and how the teacher is interacting. All right, so again, my point is it's very different, and I hope you understand how it's different. The open responses, again, there's some similarities, okay, but it's different because this open response, the original, right, for the old test, the O2, you had to kind of come up with a lot of science information, for example, right? For example, here, an important learning standard for kindergarten students is identify object and materials as being solid, liquid, or gas. And so you have to describe a physical property of liquids. So that's coming from you, right? That's your content. And then come up with a little lesson plan, learning experience to help kids understand. And then explain why this fosters learning and development for kindergarten students. Now, these two parts here, the second two parts, that part is still on the new test. You still have to kind of come up with learning experiences and explain why they foster learning and development. And the last bullet point here in the learning and development, that's probably where people did the worst. All right. So of all the things that I've read over the years, that's where people kind of fail to do very well. And we come up with language so you pretty much know how to answer that question. all right? Because we're going to have certain kinds of interventions with our learning experience, and they're all going to be kind of in the same category. And so we're going to explain why those are used. Why would you read a story? Why would you do something hands-on, a cross-curricular or social, right? We have all kinds of language to feed you that answer, so you really will do well on this part of the test if you kind of understand the first part. This is from the Arizona test, right? But it's very similar in a lot of ways to the Mass new Early Childhood MTEL. And it's very similar to the open response multiple choice questions where they give you a scenario. All right. So Justine is a 4-year-old girl experiencing typical development, and she's a native English speaker. After time at the Language Arts Center, she asked her teacher to look at the writing sample shown below. And she has a bunch of kind of random letters and numbers here, right? And so Miss Moran says, wow, that's great. Thank you very much for sharing that with me. Tell me about this. And she doesn't say, what the hell does it say, right? Tell me about it. The sun is falling down because it's nighttime in my house and the sky is blue and very orange. I would not have guessed from the writing sample, but I work with high school kids. You guys probably would be better at this stuff than I would with the 4-year-old. Right? So there are things we can see here. She has some ability, but she can't really follow through with what she can do. So we have to discuss 2 writing characteristics that she shows here. Just kind of 2 strengths. Okay. And then on the MTEL, they ask for kind of a weakness, an area of need. Here they say kind of what skill would she develop next? Identify 1 writing skill she would like to acquire next in the progression of her writing development. And then again, this is where it's very similar. This is pretty much exactly the same as the MTEL, this last part. Describe 2 instructional strategies that would promote Justine's development of the writing skill you identified. And then explain why each of these strategies would be effective. All right, so we have to interpret and understand writing development, and be able to kind of look at this and see what are the strengths, what's going to happen next, or on the MTEL, they're going to say like a weakness, all right, area of need. And you're going to have to say, I would do this with her next, and this is why it's a sound instructional practice. Not super easy, not super easy. So again, the old open response, little information given, they just say, boom, tell me about this. You had to describe a lesson, briefly describe the topic, and had to explain your rationale. The new test gives you a scenario, and it's kind of lengthy, right? That Arizona sample we saw was not super similar to the MTEL. The MTEL example, if you looked at the thing online that they've given out, it's really long. There's teacher dialogue with the student. Their student work sample is like a lesson plan that's all given there. And it's kind of good because it gives you more to kind of work with. But again, it could be overwhelming. All right. So you got to know how to break it down and what to think about. They give you the learning experience. You have to analyze it. You have to identify student strengths, identify the weakness, describe 2 instructional strategies, and explain why your strategies would be effective. All right. And in our program, we break all this down for you. I have a little even outline of a template outline that you can use to write your open response. All right. So we're going to break all that down and give you a lot of language, especially for this last part that most people struggle with. Why is it effective? Okay. So you're going to know exactly what to write and the structure of how to write it. So the programs for the old test and new test I've changed dramatically. All right, they're very different. We do talk about test taking skills, general and Pearson specific. Same thing on the new test, but I have updated a lot of what I do for the new test in terms of the density of the language and how to think about some of those things that I didn't worry so much about on the previous test, where it was more kind of just content heavy. I taught ELA, I taught science, I taught math, I taught development. There's a special ed stuff on there. So we were deep into science, deep into history. It was pretty much every one of these subjects had a couple hours over the next several sessions. Now it's different. It's more heavy on process, not content. How do we understand and interpret these questions? How do we think about a math question? How do we figure out the math concepts? What are the concepts behind the question? If you understand why they're asking what they're asking, what the question is about, you'll be able to come up with the answer. It's often difficult to say, what the hell are they even getting at here? All right. And that's what I really try to get when we're talking about the science and the history and all the other subjects. The other test, I had a brief thing on the open response because I had a great cookie cutter strategy where you could just write this, automatically write that. And even if you didn't understand the question, if you didn't even understand the question, you could at least score a 3. It's not that easy anymore. So we spend much more time on the open response, really looking at how to understand it, how to take all the information that's there and, drill down. And then again, I've talked about the templates and everything else, really how to answer that open response question. Both guaranteed to pass. You can come back as many times as you need. Again, lucky you. So this is how I break down the new program. It's 4 2-hour sessions, guarantees there, of course. In the first session, we really talk about test-taking skills, and I build a logic-based test-taking system with you, all right? I teach you what I mean by avoid the attractor. The attractor are the trick answer choices that they use to confuse you, all right? So I spend a lot of time with that basic avoid the attractor. What does it mean? How you identify attractors and what do you do to avoid them? All right. We talk about the process of elimination. Now, everybody says, oh, just use the process of elimination. What they don't tell you is there is a process to it. There even is a way to eliminate answer choices that I guarantee most of you don't do correctly. Most people don't eliminate the way they should. It's not logical what they do. And so I really work on logic. What's going to make sense here? How to maximize our score. Theoretically, if you take this and learn my system, you will score better than you should. So if everybody has a maximum score potential when they come into the test, right? God willing, it's a 240, so you pass. Most people underperform because they screw up the test taking and they get confused by the questions. They have anxiety. They run out of time. Language could be an issue. And so they get freaked out and they fall for attractors. They don't follow processes correctly. And so they get questions wrong that they should get right. What I try to do is make sure that you don't get any wrong that you should get right. You get credit for what you know. And I teach you how to guess to maximize the odds of getting those right that you don't know. So that's where process elimination comes in, where and how to guess to maximize your score. It's just a game. These kinds of tests are often just a game. And I'm going to teach you the rules. Okay. And I have lots of practice exams that I've collected over the last 25 years almost that you can practice. Okay. That's the first session, couple hours. The second session, open response. We look at the English history one, break it down, talk about how to answer it, practice together. You write for homework. The math one, same kind of thing. We write them down, we break them down, and we look at the language like I've talked about, and you do more for homework. And I'm still writing this program as I see more and I go through more of my materials, adding stuff. So what you guys get in September will be better than the guys got in May, but honestly, they all did pretty well. Right, they were all very happy with how that went. And then the other weeks, we go through the content. We go through math and science one week, and so we're going to look at like what math concepts come up. What math concepts do we have to understand, like place value, you know, the different math properties like the associative property, commutative property, all the different things that come up. I'm going to try to define for you and explain what they mean, and then look at practice questions that are really similar to what you'll see on the test to really show you how they test you on those contents, those concepts on the test itself. And we do the same thing with the English and history the next week. We cover all the crucial parts and components, maps and globes, a lot of stuff on that. So the writing process, we talk about that content, some explicit instruction, and then we look at questions that are really geared to showing you how they test you in those subjects. So when you see those questions, and they kind of repeat them a lot, right? Same concepts over and over again, you won't be surprised and you'll know how to attack them. All right, so it should be better overall. So if you want to, sign up for the class, the link is here. You can get it right on the website, joinETI.com. You can register right on that website there. And for the next 24 hours, you can get 20% off registration because you guys, stood here with me now and did this. So, but they're going to take it down the website, people, after 24 hours. So you got to kind of sign up for that 20%. And here's my contact information. All right. People call and text me all the time. I work full time at a school, right? I work at a local high school as a special ed case manager. So, during work, I can't get back to people much, but I spend a lot of my time answering questions and text and everything else. So reach out with any questions you have. So what I'll do now is I'll shut down the share and open the thing up to questions for you guys. Any questions, comments, concerns? If the chat is open, do that. Put them in the questions and answers. I'm not sure how this is going to be set up, but ask anything you would like. Anything? You guys are a quiet group. I'll give you guys a couple minutes to think if there are any questions. How much is the program? All right. It is $259, but you guys can get a discount again, that 20% discount you saw. So it would be 20% off that. And Julie, yes. I will work out a payment plan if anyone needs one without a problem. Send me an email, all right, or send me a text, and I can send you I can send a invoice that can pay you. You can pay slowly over time. Psychotherapy questions that I didn't see any. It hasn't been reported yet. So I'd say no for now, but as time goes on, we'll figure that out if it's reported. But as of now, there isn't a lot of that psychotherapy, psychotheory, that kind of thing. And Julie, in-person classes, we don't have any now. Everything has been Zoom. Tutoring may be able to arrange in person potentially, cost a little more because it's so time consuming. But classes won't be. I mean, I used to have to go and rent rooms, and that's kind of a big deal because it's you got to enter into contract and you're paying the money, and people don't want to be, pretty much. They don't want to be in person. Everybody wants Zoom nowadays. There are one-on-one classes, but that's tutoring that's much more expensive than the Zoom classes, right? So the $249 classes for a Zoom class where we would have, a dozen, 2 dozen people here with me, and I would be sharing the screen and I would be explaining everything. And people are asking questions. It's a Zoom, so people can talk and, see everybody and everything else. So it's different than this because this is a webinar setup, but it's similar to this in terms of how the class would be run. Did I get everything? Payment plan? Yes, no problem. Other questions? Concerns? Anything else? If you have any other questions that come up, again, feel free to reach out to me. You can get me on the website. You get my phone number and everything else there. I'll put my email in here just so you can have it again. And my cell is there. You can text or call me anytime. All right. Again, this will be shared on, I'll copy this up to YouTube. So it'll be up there. I did one earlier in the spring. So this is going to be the later one because it's a little bit different because I have more information because the test has been going on longer and I ran a program. So I have more details on that. So reach out with any questions at any time. I hope to see you in class, and good luck on your MTEL journey. All right. We're here for you if you need us. Good night and thanks. Oh, here we go. Days to meet. Got them. This program is meeting on Wednesdays, if I remember correctly. I think it's Wednesday evenings. And homework. Yes, there's usually homework to complete between classes, either open responses or questions that, we haven't covered in class. So there's a good amount to do. That there is. Can you guys not hear me anymore? Julie, can you hear me? Can you guys hear me now? Looks like we're still running here. Do I teach to the test? Yes. I teach a lot of concepts, but it is taught to this test. So there's no extraneous information, right? There's nothing that you don't need for this test that I'll talk about. It's all for this test. No other BS that you don't need. All right. All right, let's see. I think I've got all the questions here. Did I miss anybody's question or? All right, I think I got all the questions. So again, any other questions or anything, reach out at any time. And, we start up, I think it's the first week in September. I'll put the website there. So you have that. Oops. I typed joinETI.com. It said joint.com and get me arrested here. Okay. All right. So is anything else? Ask now. All right. Thank you all very much. Hope to see you in class. And again, reach out for any MTEL questions at all. Thanks again. Good night, everybody.